I'm sorry, we are all faculty and we are all responsible for it. We were very faculty focused. We were sages on the stage, right? Today, a time has come when I think we have to be completely student centric. Gen Z, do not underestimate them. When we create curriculum, we first vet it with our students. We
That is
ask the
amazing.
students, what do you want?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a fundamental thing, choice. It's why people don't like going to a canteen or don't like eating at home. Because when you go out, you have choice.
Yeah.
And education, yes, maybe the trends are changing. Definitely the trends are changing. But I think beyond electives, which is again a limited menu choice,
Yeah.
I don't think I have ever been asked this question, what do you want to study?
Yeah.
It's such a basic question that should be solved for.
That is also very cultural in our country because we put the student at a lower pedestal and we put the teacher at a very high pedestal.
Yeah.
The teacher becomes guru and the student becomes a vidyarthi.
So this is where you will learn peer to peer, because that is the fastest way of learning. And I think that is what the early education was like.
Yeah.
Right? I used to see, experience and learn. But eventually in industry 2.0 and 3.0, you don't have luxury of learning, and the mass education approach came into picture. But now with tech, you can definitely give personalization to masses at scale.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of our podcast upGrad Aage Ki Socho, where we delve into different domains that upGrad typically offers upskilling programs in, and we try to see where the industry is headed in the next 5 years. In the previous episode, we spoke of workforce and the job market. Today, we are going to speak about the industry that makes the industry, which is education. It is my absolute pride, honor, and pleasure to have, and in that specific order, because Aravind is alumni of upGrad. He did an MBA with Liverpool Business School, and he's now leading, as he'll tell you more, he's now leading an EdTech revolution on his own. Dr. Shahani, of course, I think a lot of people here amongst the panel would know you best. She has been the principal of HR College of Commerce for the longest time, since 2000. She now is founding president of Atlas Skilltech University. And Dr. Krishnan, of course, was last the in-charge principal of Dr. Tope College of Arts and Commerce, also an industry veteran when it comes to education, and hence the pride, honor, and the pleasure of having you on this podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So like I said, that's pretty much the past that we'll delve in, because today we are here to discuss the future of education. Dr. Krishnan, I would like to start off with you in helping me identify a very unique trend that has happened in education. We've all grown up hearing these words, finish your studies first, finish your education first. It doesn't matter what language, what state, what tier of city you come from. I think all of us have heard this. And the notion that is built in people's mind largely, or was built in people's mind largely, is that education is a phase in our lives. In the last 3 years, probably accelerated by the pandemic, we have seen that people have understood the need for constant upskilling. And a consumer of education, which earlier was probably a school student, a college student, a teenager, probably up till the age of 24, sometimes even 25 and 30, but never beyond that. What we are seeing is that education is now a lifelong thing. upGrad, I think, has always championed lifelong learning. In your experience, how have you seen the trend move? And because you've been the principal at Dr. Tope's college, and you've probably seen learning while working long before EdTech came into the picture. So we thought it would be very interesting to get your thoughts on where do you see the industry moving in the next 5 years, given the current context.
Yeah. Answering to your question, there are two important data points. One is the gross enrollment ratio at the 12th grade level, and the gross enrollment ratio in higher education. The National Education Policy 2020, it said that in 2020, the gross enrollment ratio at the 12th grade level was only 56%.
Wow.
Only 56%. So you have a huge space to cover thereafter. And the policy document also says that the country wants to achieve 100% gross enrollment ratio by 2030. So you have only 7 years time to cover a huge distance.
Right.
That is one aspect. So undergraduate education up to the age of 18, that is lower secondary and higher secondary education, that's very important, and there is a huge empty space there. In India, the education sector is largely dominated by the private sector. The government sector caters to a very small percentage of education in India because our budgetary allocation for education in the country continues to be very, very small. In 2023, it was only 2.9% of the GDP, which is comparable as compared to other countries in the world, particularly the developed countries of the world. It is very less. For example, all high-income countries in the world, they spend more than 5% of the GDP. The lower middle-income countries, they spend more than 4% of the GDP. The low-income countries spend about 3% of the GDP.
Wow.
As a matter of development, we have reached the level of a low middle-income country, but our spend on education is only 2.9%, which is comparable to only the low-income countries in the world. So therefore, there's a huge market for education at all levels. So when we come to higher education in the country, that is the +2 level, there we have 30% gross enrollment ratio, whereas in the developed countries, it is more than 80%. So 80% in that age cohort between 18 and 24, they are in the higher education sector, whereas in our country, we have only 30%. And therefore, again, in the higher education sector, we have a huge opportunity there, particularly for the private sector, because the government seems to have left the space for the private sector. That is a clear indication from the way the government's approach in terms of giving money or making outlays for the development of education in the country. The third aspect that I see is online education. This is an area where reskilling and entrepreneurship education, that's become very important. So online education is very popular amongst those people who requires lifelong educations. There's a concept of learning, unlearning, and relearning.
Yeah.
So here there's a great segment. The entire working professionals in the country, particularly the IT professionals, they require regular doses of learning, unlearning, and relearning. So therefore, you have a huge market potential for reskilling educated workforce in our country. So this is the future area of development as far as education is concerned in the country.
Very interesting. I want to pick up on something that you said. I think largely your points were the need to increase the market size of education, right? Which in academic terms is called the gross enrollment ratio.
Correct.
More people should study.
Correct.
Dr. Shahani, while that's a question of quantity, more people studying, I read, actually I watched one of your speeches at India Today, where you spoke of 19th century syllabus being taught by 20th century.
Exactly to that.
So your efforts, Dr. Krishnan's efforts have been in increasing the market size, in getting more people that basic education. Your efforts have been ensuring the quality of education goes up. So I see quantity, I see quality, and Aravind, I'll come to you also. But I want to understand your views on what you have seen changing and where do you see the industry going in 5 years?
So I think it's very important to understand that education or higher education, we need both. We need access that he talked about, and I think our gross enrollment ratio is only 27.3 in higher education and needs to go up to almost 50% by 2030, and it's quite a tough job, I can tell you, in that. But talking about quality, you're very right that I've been almost for 3 decades or more in higher education, and my experience has been that, and my frustration used to be that 19th century curriculum used to be taught by 20th century teachers to the 21st century students, right? And I thought that it was time somewhere the break had to come. And when given an opportunity, we could set up a new university, and we set up, as you know, Atlas Skilltech University. One of the things we wanted to say is focus on quality, focus on skills, because I think they are not mutually exclusive. Education and skills, or core curriculum and skills, are not, each of one of them come together. While you're doing your core, you have to see that you inculcate the right skills in the students, and skills education became very important. But in today's day and age, skills education without technology interventions is incomplete. Therefore, we became India's first Skilltech university. And I can tell you, I think we are still discovering the world of Skilltech. I mean, we've been having these discussions and looking at AI, ML, and when I want to introduce programs, I'm saying everything comes into Skilltech. What do I start with? Where do I end? And so we started with design and innovation. I think today design really creates the fundamentals for anything else that you're doing, because design thinking is really very important. Then you go towards everyone wants to be doing management, but we realized that all our institutions were creating job seekers. We were not creating job creators, not developing job creators. And so, entrepreneurship, I think that's been one of our focus. And then came technology, and then we said AI, ML. How can you leave that out? So, we also have an institution of that. But the more important point here, in quality of higher education, thanks to the National Education Policy 2020, as mentioned by Sir, saying that, your curriculum has to be interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, and transdisciplinary. Interdisciplinary curriculum exists because specializations exist within the core. Multidisciplinary is when you get specializations outside your core but from another subject. For example, every Wednesday in our institution, in our university, it's a multidisciplinary day. It's called Atlas Electives. If I'm a student of design, I can pick up anything from a management school. If I'm a school of management, I can pick up anything from design.
Yeah.
If I'm
NEP
from
has
design,
done away with the
yes, have
distinction
done
between
away.
arts, commerce, and
Because
science.
all these years, I used to say we are so siloed, arts, science, and commerce, and I think it was time to go. Let me give you one little insight and how interesting it is. A design student is a creative mind working on product design, on interiors, on whatever. When it comes to selecting an elective, what's the elective they select from the management school? How to make money on the stock exchange. Right? So this is the span that we've been able to now bring in our new university. And I think that is adding quality. And finally, I would say one of the things, I'm sorry, we are all faculty and we are all responsible for it. We were very faculty focused. We were sages on the stage, right? Today, a time has come when I think we have to be completely student centric. Gen Z, do not underestimate them. When we create curriculum, we first vet it with our students.
Wow.
We
That is
ask the
amazing.
students, what do you want? And even yesterday, I got a mail to say that the course curriculum is perfect, but we do not find that the assignments match the course curriculum.
Great.
You see, it's time that they decide. I think long ago, I was very fortunate when one of my mentors had told me, quality will come to higher education when students demand quality. And today, I think a day has come when I think we have to be not sages on the stage, but guide by the side and work with them.
As far as quality of education is concerned, year after year we have annual school education report, ACER report. The ACER reports, you all know, it says that the 8th grade guy, he doesn't know read and write,
Yeah.
the second standard textbook, so on and so forth. So this is not only the case with the school education in the country, which clearly reflects upon the extremely poor quality of school education, but that is also the case with higher education. there is no level playing field as far as higher education is concerned in the country. All universities and colleges, legally speaking, they are on a horizontal level. But when it comes to curriculum, syllabi, pedagogy, everything is different. Everything
Yeah.
is different. So as a result, there is no market signaling mechanism in our country that X university, whether as a company, whether I'm going to get a good workforce from this particular university, I really don't know.
True.
So I am fiddling in troubled waters when it comes to higher education in the country. So my point is, Acer as an institution, it is looking at school education. It should also look at college and higher education and bring out a report year after year so that corrective mechanisms, corrective actions are taken
True.
in terms of quality upgradation in the country.
So, sir, I was saying, actually, what I understand your point. There is a need to have quality regulations even in higher education.
Not regulation, the study of
Study, yes.
and the reports.
Got it.
Because regulations we have the UGC, we have NAC to regulate and accredit the schools and colleges, we have NBA, we have all sorts of institutions to accredit the higher education institutions as well as the schools. But still, as for when it comes to quality, we fare very, very poorly.
Correct. But I think you mentioned there needs to be a measure of how much the student is able to comprehend.
Correct.
For that. All the accreditation agencies that you mentioned are checking the quality of education imparted.
Yeah.
But the quality of education taken back and comprehended and then applied. But I think I just want to pick up what Dr. Shahani said, because I think that is a very, I was mind blown. I don't think in my entire education, anybody has ever asked me, what do you want to study?
Yeah.
Never.
That has to be the modern trend. I think it starts with Indu's Atlas Skilltech University as a heartbreaking concept in the country, but
True.
that has something, the education should get revolutionized in this manner.
True.
The all stakeholders in the education system should be given the importance that they deserve, and they should be
absolutely.
consulted with before
Today-
you deliver something to them.
Today, the products and services are being built with co-create with customers, right?
Yeah.
So the same trend, co-create with the students, because they are, at the end of the day, if they don't make sense out of what they are learning,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
they don't
absolutely.
feel it is aligned with their aspirations to get into industry and contribute to the economy, then it doesn't make sense.
And I'd also say that when you put the responsibility of learning on the learner, you find a different learner than you would have normally had.
Yeah.
When we think that they are only in the class and it's a one-way communication, the response doesn't come through. But you say, here's the responsibility on you. You're the one who has to take this ahead. You see a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a fundamental thing, choice. It's why people don't like going to a canteen or don't like eating at home. Because when you go out, you have choice.
Yeah.
And education, yes, maybe the trends are changing. Definitely the trends are changing. But I think beyond electives, which is again a limited menu choice,
Yeah.
I don't think I have ever been asked this question, what do you want to study?
Yeah.
It's such a basic question that should be solved for.
That is also very cultural in our country, because we put the student at a low pedestal and we put the teacher at a very high pedestal.
Yeah.
The teacher becomes guru and the student becomes a vidyarthi. From that kind of relationship, I think we should come to a level where the student becomes a customer and the teacher becomes the service provider. That should be the nomenclature.
Yeah, I was, in fact, I was going to say,
Vidyarthi Guruji relationship.
Yeah.
You have customer service provider.
As I said,
relationship.
the guide by your side.
yes,
You have to remain a guide because you are a faculty.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you have more experience than the students.
Yes,
So
facilitate.
you know, and you facilitate
Facilitate.
that. Yeah.
Correct. That
You
is- that's
facilitate that.
important.
But to think that they are just going to be sitting quietly in the class and you're just going to be a one-way communication, it's gone. Gone are those days.
wow, that's really,
And-
I'm so happy that trend is
And I'm
here.
also very proud to say that a large number of students who were given this opportunity that take care of the class while the faculty is away, do this, do that, have today become actually faculty themselves. As you know, not everybody's first preference is to become into the teaching profession, and which is sad. And now I'm seeing that younger people want to come in and be a part of the faculty.
My principal wanted me to be the faculty. When I was a student,
Yeah.
I used to take lectures.
That's it.
Right? And that's how, I got that offer to become a faculty.
I recently caught up with one of my old school friends, and he told me that he's the head of department in some college, in some whatever. And I couldn't control myself. I said, you?
Yeah, but you'd be surprised. You will be surprised that, some of the students you never thought would
Yeah,
would
like
really
we were bandits
impress
together,
you.
right? Whatever in school.
And come back to you and tell you that, look, this is what I'm doing, and I can do this much funding, and I can do this. And you say, wow, that's it. Somewhere we've gone right?
True.
But
So-
you talked about, let's come back to the first question that and maybe he would take that on further. You talked about EdTech, but I must say that what happened to education during the pandemic was a revolution. I never thought that online education would ever come up to this extent. I mean, we had created studios in our university earlier, in our institutions, hoping that professors will go there, deliver a lecture, which we could then put up in the library, or if a faculty is absent, then that lecture could be shown in this. But nobody went. And my studio was just lying vacant. The minute online education came in the pandemic, I think it's opened a world of EdTech that we never imagined. Sitting in at this age with being the chancellor of a university, I am thinking of doing a program in law, which I always wanted to do but didn't get a chance to do. As you said, learning and relearning and learning further and learning new. And today EdTech has opened up a world for us. And I'm so glad to see, I mean, he's a great example himself that, he's done
the
this. I
leverage
think
of-
you have to tell this because
Yes.
students should know how well you've used both your formal education and your EdTech education to take your career ahead.
Yes, definitely.
I want to actually, all of these things that we just spoke of, right? These are multiple different trends working together to create something very, very new. And I think very new kind of EdTech is what Aravind is building. Aravind, if you can quickly tell our audiences what the Bharat Blockchain Network is, what is Polyversity, and because I find it very interesting. It's because of blockchain, it's going to be peer-to-peer.
Yes.
Ma'am spoke about how teacher is supposed to be a guide on the side, which is equivalent of peer-to-peer, right?
Yes.
Teacher learns from student, student learns from teacher.
Yes.
There is two-way conversation.
Yes.
And that is what blockchain is all about. So please tell us about
Sure, definitely. Yeah. And indeed, if you look at the foundational level of the change which is happening, right? Now we are in industry 4.0, right? And if you look at the previous eras, the nature of work and the nature of learning was more focused on life than living, right? And it was more philosophical. And then as we saw the industry 2.0 and 3.0, things moved from philosophy to science and then to tech.
True.
And if you look at the rate at which the shift of education from life to living is what is apparent. And I think that is the accelerating change which is also pushing the content of the education system to be updated like very quickly
Very
and
quickly.
swiftly. And again, technology as a layer which penetrated into everything is also something which is changing very fast and it impacted. So I think the ripple effect of all the changes which are happening across is what is bringing a shift in the education system.
True.
Right?
Very well put.
So if you look at the quantity or qualitative things, if things are changing so fast today, in next 3 to 5 years, and today it's already happening, but in next 3 to 5 years, it doesn't matter how much you learned and what you learned. All it matters is your learnability. Because
Explain learnability for...
so learnability is the ability to learn. So the next generations are expected learn to learn so that you can learn anything coming up. And all you need to have is an outlook or context of how things are evolving. So content
Wow.
will not make any sense in future. It's only the context. And I think that is where the technology is driving. Now, if you take AI, we are moving away from the information era to knowledge era to skill era or skill economy. And when we are moving into skill economy, it's only context of that content to what I am doing matters more than what the content or how beautifully it has put or who is delivering it. So I think this is one significant change which is going to happen. Now coming to Bharat Blockchain Network and Polyverse. So I have set the context now.
Yeah.
Okay. Now when this kind of change is happening, all we need is an education system which is very swift, which is more of a ecosystem driven, and which can adopt much faster. And I think if the such thing has to happen, and India which has like around 900 universities, 33,000 higher education institutes, just imagine the rate at which the content has to be absorbed is very, very fast. And if such ecosystem level absorption has to happen, then you need a consortium effort which has to happen across the ecosystem. And if you look at NEP, of course, it talks about ecosystem, the importance of ecosystem. And today, if you look at all the universities, they put amazing efforts, they put amazing infrastructure, but the efforts are happening in silos. And everyone is putting the same efforts and they reach to the same height, but as a whole ecosystem, we are still flat.
Correct.
Now, in that context, what we are creating is Bharat Blockchain Network, an educational consortium network built on tech, enabled by tech, where it's not the regulator who is controlling or driving everything. Rather, it's a decentralized network where every university maintains a node in the network, a server infrastructure, and it's a decentralized network infrastructure. Now, on top of it, how does the governance work? Everyone has a governance token. Of course, this little more tech, and everyone has voice. It's more of a consensus driven approach. Now, just imagine there is a new technology coming up, like say 6G, and some content has to go as an elective for all the universities. Now, every university has board of studies, industry experts coming in, and it's a hefty effort.
Yes.
Now, just imagine that kind of effort happening at once with consensus of all the university partners. Now, this is what we are envisioning with Bharat Blockchain Network, bringing an ecosystem play into Act 1. And second, we all talk about learning management systems and online education, and we spoke about quality of the content and everything. But if you look at Gen Z and Gen Alpha, the people who are absorbing the content, their attention time is very, very limited. And bite-sized learning or experiential learning have been talked for quite some time. But the biggest challenge is such level of personalization and such level of experiential learning is not possible. So now what we are also building is an educational metaverse by name Polyversity.
Oh, wow.
And that's where universities scattered across the country are available in virtual world in one virtual real estate land. And just imagine the kind of cross-pollination which can happen between 500,000 students coming across from 130 universities, joining with identity as an avatar and jumping in. The kind of cross-pollination is only beyond the imagination.
Absolutely.
So this is where you will learn peer-to-peer, because that is the fastest way of learning. And I think that is what the early education was like.
Yeah.
Right? I used to see, experience and learn, but eventually in industry 2.0 and 3.0, you don't have luxury of learning, and the mass education approach came into picture. But now with tech, you can definitely give personalization to masses at scale.
Wow.
And I think that is the biggest possibility which we are seeing, and that is where we are building this Polyversity asset.
I think tech is the one that really is going to bring out all.
Of course,
you know,
of
even
course.
with a simple thing like using AR, VR.
Yes.
It's brought, I mean, into a design school where they are doing interiors. Today, they can tell me if I say that I want to redo this classroom. In 2 minutes, 10 minutes, they'll sit together, they'll create, and on AR, VR, I'll be able to see exactly which corner, where, what, and it's amazing to see
And I think that is what, so the future of education is you can visualize something, manifest it out to
And
the
get
fastest
it done.
possible,
Yes.
showcase to the world,
Yes.
and if world loves it, you have a creator economy around that. So on top of Bharat Blockchain Network, what we are also creating is an learning content marketplace, where whether you're a faculty or a student or an enthusiast, if you feel like there is a content which can make people learn, you list it there, you commercialize. So what I see the future is not like the courses, because if you carefully observe,
Yes.
once upon a time we used to have degrees. Like
Degrees.
4 years, then came diplomas, then came shorts upskilling
Yes,
programs,
yes.
which is the trend now. So the future is bite-sized learning, where I just learn something quickly. I have a skill badge which is verifiable on blockchain again, on the network what we are building, and I can quickly grab a task from the job giver, job market. I can do it, and a smart contract on the network can quickly execute, and I get my money.
Absolutely.
And I can tell
And
you.
I think, and to complete, the future of jobs is a float job.
that is the magic of blockchain.
Yes. So it's float job. So the job which floats.
Correct.
And where do you float? Where do you go? It all depends on what is the kind of skill journey you take.
It sounds like I have no control over my career.
No. And wait till you listen to this.
One
You know,
important point that I took it from Indu's talk on EdTech and the pandemic. When the pandemic happened, we all switched over to electronic learning. We use technology. Pandemic over, we are back to physical education. As if we have learned nothing from the
yeah,
pandemic.
exactly.
We
But-
should have continued,
No,
to use
hybrid.
technology.
Hybrid.
Accustomed to that.
Yeah,
No, we
and
should continue hybrid.
we should have continued hybrid, but the entire education system in the country has gone back to physical education.
Yeah.
In a situation where in the higher education across the segments, whether it is colleges, universities, IIMs, and IITs, 30 to 40% vacancies are not filled up even today. And here you are mal allocating the resources. We are not using technology. You learn to use technology and now you are not using it. That's a very big anomaly in the higher education
Correct.
sector in our country.
And I think, see, it is just because, I'll tell you. Now, just imagine, I'm a faculty who can visualize a model, bring that up just like in air, and I can create some new learning experiences, then online will work. Now, if you are just taking the same board and kind of same delivery online,
No, but
then what is the additional value online education is created? So, in that context, if higher education has gone back to physical education, because it is just the medium which was used.
But you can
We didn't leverage
you can save your resources.
the more broader capabilities.
I would just like to tell him that he's right in a way that online, in fact, brought in technology and different creative ways of using technology, which was never done before.
Correct.
Right? Now, let me tell you, product design. How do you teach product design online? You have to create the product, right? You have to show the students to create the product.
And that's where the metaverse experiences, I think
so
the
this
augmented reality.
young professor, that is when it was online. Young professor sits with 3 gadgets in front of him, the cell phone, the computer, and an iPad. He tells them the formula of the product, whatever it needs to be done on the computer. All the students create that, right? Then that is sent out to the printers, okay? We had an arrangement with 3D printing organization which would take this on.
Yeah.
It would go. And then we had an arrangement where the fast track would bring that printed model to the student's house before the next lecture.
Wow.
Yes.
And that's how creative they were. And
That's
I'm
truly
right.
taking it from online, literally taking it from online
You
and
can
turning it.
channelize the resources. You
Yes.
can save your resources and maybe fill up the vacancies which are
Yeah,
there
with
across the
hybrid.
segment in the higher education sector.
Correct.
I agree.
And I think there are 2 ways to it. Again, if we the primary focus of sir was more on enrollment, right? Gross enrollment and all, right? So if you take a lab, for example, right? How much of a lab infrastructure can you set up? Like something which is accessible for 60 students typically, or 120 students. But imagine again in VR, AR, right? You can create a lab at home,
At home, absolutely.
right? All
Absolutely.
students. So I think the mass adoption of online will happen once this AR VR becomes more mainstream.
Suddenly for me the lines are all blurring. Education has come into
Yes.
workforce, has come into technology. Technology has come into education.
It's all
I
because
don't know where
the
to slot
change
this
is happening
conversation.
so
Exactly.
fast, right? So if the change is happening so fast, by the time you learn, what you are expected to deliver is moving. So when things are moving so fast, then obviously that's what you all started with, right? Lifelong
Yeah.
learning.
But-
So when we are in constant change,
Yeah.
there is only relative stability between education and work. So you need to constantly, like, both learning and work will go hand
But
in
like
hand.
when AI came in, one of the first fears was of the teachers was the students will use AI. Now today the teachers are using AI. All right, they are using it,
For
so
storytelling,
effectively
for storytelling,
so
presentations.
they have created a new course called in our tech field, which is called data by storytelling. Right now they're doing these different things, but see how it's happening in teaching and especially in education, whether school or higher education. AI, ML will always be there, but you cannot do away with that human touch. So the teacher will always play a very important role, but the teacher will be wanted if the teacher also uses
So I
AI
think that
and
is where the nature of teaching also is changing, right? It's
Changing
more of a
completely.
facilitator. Now, say for example,
more
a
of
student
theater,
of
more of theater, I would say.
So a future student only should be focused on like facilitating an environment where, okay, what to ask. That's it. That is the only thing which is to be facilitated. Now the series of questions will decide what you will be learning.
Correct.
So I think that is where we are going. And
And gamification you talked about, it's happening in class. One of our young faculty members is using it as bids for points, and if a student come late, lost 1 point. So student in time made it and gained 1 point. Now these gamifications are becoming more active than my writing to the parents and telling them your people are not attending and you're not doing this.
so it's creating more of a
Gamification.
reputation system.
It
right?
is. It's creating an automatic system which is
Yeah.
working.
Yes.
I think somebody had once told me, like we were discussing education and our, how our education experience was. And on this part of gamification, right, someone told me what it does is solves a very basic problem that education used to have, was that the reward for investment, my hours, my effort, my concentration, that reward came much later. You had to first clear the year, then the school, then degree, and then you are
Instant
finally
gratification.
rewarded.
At the end of
It's instant
Same,
gratification.
the Gen Z, I told you, right? They don't have attention time much longer. Unless until
8.36 seconds.
seconds.
Attention.
So unless until they find a way to use that and make something out of that, they don't really care.
one of the important aspects of NEP 2020 is 15 years of school education. It starts at age 3 and ends at age 18. So there is 4, 5, 6. There's a huge scope there because that is consisting of all informal kind of education. So in the immediate future, we need composite schools.
Correct.
Where the child enters at the age of 3 and exits at the age of 18. The NEP also talks of free entry and free exit.
Yes.
So 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th, lower secondary and higher secondary, where it is focusing on vocationalization, so that after the 10th or after the 12th, the child or the young fellow enters in the job market, right? So skill education becomes extremely important in this particular segment, 9th to 12th grade, right? And in the next 5 years, there will be an estimated 300 million job seekers in the country, and we'll be able to provide jobs only for around the 150 million.
Correct.
So only 50% job creation will happen. So here again, there's a huge challenge.
and-
So I think that is where the creator
academic-
economy comes up,
Yeah.
right?
And
See,
the
you
academic
can't
bank
expect
of
everyone to
credit.
be employed.
Correct. So here,
Can't be.
there's an opportunity for educational
And
technology.
they talked about academic bank of credit, which never existed before,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Today you can bank your credits and then get away,
Map it to
go
Aadhaar.
out, and then go
Yes,
back
and use
again and use it. You know, I remember the time that how the parents used to hassle us. I haven't got my mark sheet. I haven't got this. All that is gone now. That's
Yes.
all available online.
Yes. And I think with blockchain, what we are doing is all the skill badges or the
Yeah,
journey
skill
of
badges,
the students,
that's something.
right? So that is something what we are tracking on blockchain
Yes.
so that it is time stamped.
Correct.
And even insider attacks can't happen. Now, again, if you look at the
So I can't
centralized-
lie to my teachers anymore.
So you finish that off and you have your skill badges in your wallet. You go verify and you have your
Blockchain
job
technology maintains the record, which can be verified anytime.
anytime.
True.
Yeah.
And therefore, there's no
So I think
scope for
it's
telling lies.
There's no more dog that ate
So
the
so
homework.
that's what I like. Even internally, when we work within our org IDS, we have this ABCDE of Industry 4.0. What we call AI, blockchain, cloud,
Internet
digital
things.
twin, which is Internet of Things. Digital twin is the Internet of Things.
Okay.
The next evolutionary step of Internet of Things, and E is extended reality,
Okay.
which is AR VR. Now, the convergence of these technologies is also something which is very important, and the concept of multidisciplinary comes here
Yeah,
because no tech is working in silos.
correct.
They are all multiple layers to what can be done. Now, as an end consumer, like you are talking about consumerism, right? Now, a typical citizen or a day-to-day person is also expected to use technology in their day-to-day life.
True.
It's not that every student of future will go and build technology, but will be also using technology.
Using technology.
So the learning should also focus on bringing that digital literacy,
So
which is again
had-
eventually happening.
I have to give you an example here. I don't know. Do you remember the days when we used Yahoo?
Yeah.
Okay, and right now I had this Yahoo email, and one day it was hacked. I'm the principal of a college, leading college, etc. It was hacked, and somebody came and said that there's one student here who has hacked your email.
Oh, okay.
And so, of course, the teacher's reaction was, we must punish him. I said, call him here. Call him here. I am going to make him my assistant, all right? Because he knows more than I know, right? and today, ethical hackers' job has become one of the most important jobs.
Yes,
right?
indeed. Yes,
And so hacking was something that he knew. It was a skill.
yeah, correct.
But
being used for a good thing.
at a good
Yeah.
thing.
Dr.
So-
Shahani, I want to ask you. I read that you'd done your doctoral thesis on industry and academia coming together.
Yeah.
It's happening now.
Yes, it is.
Is this the future that you had seen? Probably thought of. Is what's happening today? Does it match to what your doctoral thesis was?
I would say we've reached 50% of what I hoped for. At least academia and industry are coming together. Academia have started thinking the importance of the industry coming in, because all this time the academia always sat in their own world and thought everything they did was right, till the time you
Should it be made
realize.
compulsory? That is a question I'm asking.
Uh-huh.
Should it be made compulsory? Academia?
And I think that
No,
is
because I think the jobs of the future, the skills of the future, everything is in the real world. The real world is after the student steps out from your college, from your institution. So the real world, whether it is corporates or whether it is entrepreneurship or whether it is street entrepreneurship, I would say, whatever it is, the reality of life, what the student is going to face after he or she comes out from academia and corporate. I think today academia is becoming more open, wanting to work with corporates. However, the corporates are in a way limited by their one goal of whatever their P&L is. Okay, at the end of the day, it is the P&L.
Yeah.
It is the quarter-to-quarter performance for all the corporates. So does this fit into that? Does it not fit into it? So I think unlike in some of the very advanced countries where the corporates have given chairs, funded universities with chairs, funded universities for research, given grants for patents and so on. I think that culture of the corporates giving back to academia is very important.
True.
Because at the end of the day, academia is selflessly working for the real world.
Very well.
The
So that is-
academia industry interface, which is has come only to 50%. That's because one of the reasons is we are only focusing at the organized sector of the economy, which is only 7% of the economy.
Yes.
93% of the economy is unorganized,
Yes.
where we have small, medium enterprises.
Yes.
They should also join
Work together.
the academia. Only then the need gap, that
Correct.
will be filled up.
But see, I'll
If
tell you
you're
what.
only looking at,
Like everything else, I think academia. Like I'll speak for industry, right?
Yeah.
Like everything
That's what I
else,
want.
industry also needs reward for its investment.
correct.
I'll tell you what I did last year, a couple of years ago. So I used to hire from MICA, which is an advertising marketing
Yeah,
institute
yeah,
in
yeah.
Ahmedabad. In my previous company where I'd
I
worked.
was on the board of MICA for
Yeah, I
many
know, I
years.
know. So I used to hire from there and whatever, and I always felt that maybe I was slotted third interview session, right? So maybe the cream of the talent has gone to somebody else. Although these were great candidates that I'd picked up, but I wondered, what if I had the first call, would I get better? So then they also reached out to me saying, we have an, adjunct faculty position, and it was the pandemic at that time. So why don't you, it's anyway online, so why don't you also teach? I said, okay. So a year and a half, I did that because I knew that if I'm faculty and I'm teaching the next batch, I know exactly who to pick when, campus placements
That's
happen.
smart, I would say, not selfish, smart.
Yeah, but that was the reward that I took for my own investments into
Correct.
it.
Correct.
So I think if industry also gets back something instantly, you'll find more people from the industry coming in.
And I think that is already happening. I'll
Happening.
tell you.
It
Because
is
see, if
happening.
you look at, say, again, I represent industry. Now we heard the academic perspective, right? But if you look from the industry point of view, we are working with 130 university partners across 15 states today. And one of the biggest thing what we are getting is the instant talent in the form of internships. And if you look at AICT and UGC, they mandated that students should be doing internships.
And internships come free.
And I think, they are paid internships.
They're paid.
So what happened is, because all the projects which used to be there in the third and fourth years are now converted into an internship. Now with that, of course, the university started opening up, because the moment they reach out to us, the first thing they ask is, okay, can we get internships for our students? So that's a very good thing, because again, deep thought happened at the regulator, definitely made them open and look to collaborate with industry. That is one. And second, coming to the faculty research. Now, one of the biggest drawback with Indian technology education, if you carefully observe, most of our content is derived from the Germany, EU and US when these IITs have been set up.
Right.
And we have been consistently being followers of the trends happening there and deriving the content. Now, if you look at Web3, which is the next tech which is happening, what we made with academia is, you are not falling behind. Even the academia there or here are on same par. Okay. And we have set up an industry focused applied blockchain centers. That means one university will focus on blockchain for telecom. One will focus on blockchain for supply chain and logistics. Now, only such orientation towards a domain or an industry sector only will bring that other 50%, which is a gap identified so far. Because unless until there is an industry sector focus or niche focus, no university can in general go and cater skilling for the students who can go and do everything in every industry. That will never happen. So I think from this generalized mindset, an industry sectoral focus is something which has to happen. And only when such domain knowledge is available with the faculty, then the ROI of giving them some funds will definitely come out.
True.
So I think these are the two, again, industry academia collaborations. One, sectoral focus from academia side, And second, people don't have, industry today doesn't have luxury to upskill people for 6 months once they come out of college, put them on bench, wait for the projects. I think those days are
Those days
gone.
are gone.
Gone.
Now you need people who are ready.
Ready.
So that
Job
means
ready.
you need to go collaborate with universities from the industry, so that while they are in the last years, you are actually training them what you do when they come out. Okay. And then you absorb by giving internships, see how they are performing, and then absorb full time.
I think
And this
that
is
would-
what we are doing at IDEA.
That would make, like, it just sounds to me like that is such a well thought out step. Many people realize that, oh, this is not what I want to do. They get out of college, they get into a company, and then realize 3 years later, I don't want to do this.
Correct.
This sounds like a great testing period while you're
And we
still
are
in
also
college.
giving them to test waters by giving a free course, a boot camp course available on LMS, where they get to understand the tech, they get to understand what industries are leveraging the tech, and what are the job opportunities and the career progression. Now just imagine if industry is taking that effort once, now that is accessible for all the students.
I want to take a quick, it's actually a great segue to my last section. India and Indians where we are today, right? You hear about so many Indians going all over the world, even in India. Really, Indians have come to the fore in this century. Across the world, in all industries, we're just cutting across everywhere. And what is undeniable fact is that our education has led us there. Every single success story that you hear of course, without education also, people have succeeded. But if you see the global trend and where India is today, education is probably, I would credit it like maximum points. We are where we are because of the education that we've received. But we're also today talking about the future of education, and I got to hear so many amazing things. Not once did I hear marks, report card, degrees. I think the discussions that we had today gives me, and I'm sure our viewers, a lot of hope that we've built a great base on education, and now it's time for probably phase 2, growth phase 2. So as closing comments, where would you see education going specifically for India, and if there is a message that you can give to our viewers on how to propel their own life and their career using education and all the advancements that we're making in education? I'll start off with you, Dr. Krishnan, and then we'll go towards.
Every year, 25 lakh students from our country, they emigrate outside for higher education. This is something which we should stop by creating opportunities inside the country. That will take us really forward as far as higher education is concerned.
Got it. How about you, Dr. Shahani?
I always feel that our Prime Minister talks about Make in India, Skill in India, Digital India. Why not study in India? And I think it's time for us to create universities that and institutions that can actually not just match up, but even be ahead of universities abroad, because they are living on their past glory, and we have now young India. We have the youngest population. We are now going up economically. We are growing. I think it's such a great optimistic time for us in India that students want to stay back here. They want to study here. So let's all put our energies together to see that we can really do a wonderful job and create a great study in India platform for them.
That's great.
Aravind, how about you?
I think from the industry point of view, if you look at the future is more continuously learning and upskilling, right? So when someone wants to upskill, definitely pick up something which is niche and domain focused. Please don't look at very generic courses. My suggestion would be to look at the industry segment and where you can create value. Because if you don't see, like if someone is working on a project, a company investing millions or billions of dollars, basically they look at someone who can jump in and contribute to that. So more than the technology knowledge, the functional knowledge is required for engineers, and for the managerial leaders or professionals, the technology knowledge is also important. So I think that cross pollination is something which is need of the hour, and universities should facilitate that.
Good.
Good. And if you're finally ending, then I want to say something, if you both gentlemen allow, and give the lady the last word.
Definitely.
I just want to relate one quick incident and then end it up with that. I was in New York and I was traveling by a taxi, yellow cab, okay? And yellow and black cab, I'm there. And I get into a taxi, and this taxi driver, who's looked from Latin America somewhere, turns around and tells me, "Are you an Indian?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "You Indians, your Microsoft is run by Indian, Google is run by Indian," and then he rattled off so many company names, and then he said, "Now you've even lent a prime minister to UK," and then turns around and says, "You Indians are ruling the world."
Nice.
So I feel if we are ruling the world, it's our young people, our education system, which has actually been very, very strong, because all of us are here because of the education we've received in this country. And I'm a product of this country's education all through. So I would say that we are very, very privileged. So your topic is Aage Ki Socho. So I would just like to say a line on सोच बदलो तो सितारे बदल जाएंगे,
Wow.
नजर बदलो तो नजारे बदल जाएंगे, क्यों रोज किश्तियां बदलते हो, क्यों रोज किश्तियां बदलते हो, दिशाएं बदलो तो किनारे बदल जाएंगे.
Wow. I think that's the mic drop. Now we cut.